Welcome back. As you know, the world is burning. Can AI help solve some of the planet's biggest climate challenges? I don't have the answer, but thankfully, the very smart people on our next panel have proposals, solutions, and will guide us through more hopeful times. To lead the conversation, I'm happy to welcome back, she was here yesterday, our moderator, who also happens to be a reporter at the Financial Post, Madame Yvonne Lau, and she will be joined on stage by Executive Director of CEMIA, Sophie Falah, along with Assistant Professor at l'Université de Montréal and Mila, Alex Hernandez-Garcia, and the CEO of Canada's Ocean Supercluster. She was here last year, she was a returner, Karen McDonald, and the founder of the Clean Air Initiative, Nicholas Parker. So Yvonne, Sophie, Kendra, Nicolas, please welcome to the stage.
Hello and welcome everyone. We're nearing the end of All In, but I'm so glad you could join us here today for what I think will be a really important and exciting conversation on the role of AI in helping us solve the planet's biggest challenges. So the topic of AI and climate change is obviously a big one, but the direction the panel wanted to take today is really to dial down on viable solutions where AI can help. And to tackle it all, we have on stage a panel with deep expertise in research, policy, and entrepreneurship who will introduce themselves and their work throughout the conversation. So maybe let's start here to set the stage. Before we talk about specific use cases, where are we currently with AI research as it relates, as it relates to climate change? Have there been recent breakthroughs, and what can we expect in the coming years? Alex, maybe you can kick us off.
Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. And yeah, my name is Alex. Like it was said in the introduction, I'm an assistant professor at the Université de Montréal in the Department d'Informatique et Recherche Opérationnelle. I'm also a core academic member at Mila, the Quebec AI Institute, Ivado professor, and also a faculty member of the Institut Courtois. And my research is on machine learning research inspired by applications precisely that can have an impact on tackling climate challenges, also health challenges. So I work on machine learning for climate modeling, for materials discovery, for sustainability purposes, also drug discovery. And I've been working on this area for the last few years. So to answer your question, I can say that there's been really a lot of movement, a lot of research, at least on the research side of things that I'm most aware of. We've moved from an AI field that was primarily academic, focused on the methods itself, how to make AI work, how to develop, the nuts and bolts of things. And I think we've moved in the last 4 or 5 years to applications of AI on a lot of different topics that are precisely inspired by these challenging problems like climate change, drug discovery as well. So in the realm of science, in the realm of climate change, there's really a lot of different applications that range from climate modeling, biodiversity, materials discovery. There is a lot of applications for climate monitoring as well, for improving energy systems like buildings, infrastructure, transport. So there's really a lot of research going on. And I think we'll have a chance to get into the details as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks for that, Alex. We know that Canada has excelled in AI research and development. Many of you here today are a testament to that. But Canada oftentimes struggles to bring great ideas to market. So can we talk about maybe some specific use cases that have arisen here that make market sense, whether those are use cases that make energy systems more efficient, manage ocean resources and ecosystems, or can improve climate and risk modeling? Anyone like to start?
I certainly can start from an ocean perspective. So Canada McDonald, Canada's Ocean Supercluster. So for those of you that may be less familiar, we're here at a Scale AI conference. So we are the Scale AI of ocean, I guess, the best way to describe us. So we're really responsible for growing the ocean economy for Canada. We've invested in close to 150 projects, and now we're seeing that about 40% of that portfolio are now AI solutions. And we focus on commercialization of AI solutions. So there's others. Adoption is a big problem, but that's not where we focus. We focus on commercialization. So we definitely see, a few examples and maybe something you wouldn't think of. So safe passage of fish is a big issue for power dams, for example. And so there's a company that has been able to develop a solution that uses computer visioning to identify fish moving in the water, which if you picture a fish moving in the water, it's not an easy thing to pick up with computer visioning. But through tagless tracking, they've been able to both improve the efficiency of the power dam, because the power dam can better estimate when the fish are coming by, and also protect the fish. So you're seeing a better commercial outcome for the power dam, as well as a better outcome for the fish. So that's one example. We also see it a lot with weather prediction. So we've got, in the whole ocean observation space, so 70% of our planet is ocean. And right now, only about 25% of that, we have high fidelity data of the bottom of the sea. So there's a huge amount of data to come, but we see a number of projects that are using buoys, satellites, drones, autonomous vessels to collect data. And then now with this huge amount of data, we can make better decisions. And we've got several examples of companies that are using that information, whether it's to improve shipping lanes, whether it's to better park your ship, whether it's better manage your aquaculture farm, but lots and lots of examples of where you're able to both improve the commercial operation, but also improve the environmental outcome.
Happy to jump in. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Nicholas Parker, founder of the Clean AI Initiative. I've been a venture capitalist and an advocate for action on sustainability all my life. And I launched the Clean AI Initiative about a year and a half ago to look at what is the opportunity set when you combine the greatest invention of humanity, AI, with our largest challenge, climate change and nature. And so what we've done in the last year and a half is we've tracked something like 70 billion Canadian dollars invested in thousands of rounds of financing for startups and scale-ups who are commercializing solutions in what we call clean AI. So clean AI is the application of AI where it can differentiate or enable a solution either in the core business model or service offering in service of climate action or sustainability. And right now, the world is investing huge amounts, as we know, in AI innovation, as we're seeing here at All In. But what we don't realize is nearly 10% of all venture dollars going into AI are going into clean AI solutions. So that has been about $50 billion we've tracked now in the last 5 years in this area.
Perhaps I could jump in on that. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. My name is Sophie Falaha. I'm the executive director at Simia. Perhaps just to kind of give a bit of background to my answer, I'll give a few words about Simia. So we're an international organization delivering high-impact projects in responsible AI through the stewarding of international advocacy and science diplomacy. So that being said, so we really have an anchor that is international collaboration to tackle the implementation of the AI governance toolbox, developing AI responsibly, but also AI for the social benefits, for the benefits of societies, hence tackling climate change as an example. And I'll go back to your question about like what do we see in terms of research and then how we then manage to go to commercialization. Supporting an international community of experts, and amongst our mandate, we also support the Global Partnership on AI, integrated partnership with the OECD. So we have 44 governments, as well as a community of around 500 experts from research, private sector, civil society, international organization, all working together to develop AI governance toolbox, and as well project that will benefit societies. So a few examples of projects that we've built in the past few years and what we're looking at for the next few years. Already 4 years ago, we've published a report, AI and Climate, providing policymakers with recommendations on how AI could be helpful sectors by sectors to tackle the climate crisis and support the energy transition and objective of net zero transition of several countries. So we had several use cases for agriculture, for forestry, for heavy industry, as an example. Now, looking at what we have in the pipeline for the next few months and years, a few examples. So we're working with governments in terms of developing their tools for their public procurement of AI systems, but incorporating carbon footprint data. So making sure that the choice of AI systems that they make are the one that will have the best environmental footprint, looking at the carbon footprint. Another example of a project that we have in the pipeline is working with researchers, but also with both governments and also public sector organizations that have access to data, that have access to climate data, to meteo data, and even going back to documents in writing, take all the data related to climate and the meteo data to then be able to better model climate disasters such as like heavy rain, droughts, forest fires, and then it's more a question here of being ready it's more a question of adaptation to the climate crisis and really fighting the climate crisis, but still related. So really afterwards, the idea is providing tools to governments to be ready to fight that climate crisis. And back to the follow-up question, which is commercialization of research, I think we still do have a few great examples in Canada of companies that were able to take the research for AI to fight climate change and bring it to market. And I'll give the example of the company called Brainbox AI, who developed AI systems for building and really optimization of the heating systems and the electricity systems, sorry for the noise. Then again, helping the fight against climate change.
Anything to add, Alex?
Well,
yeah, I'd love to add on to this. I think there's great company examples from coast to coast to coast in Canada. Indigenous communities.
Lots of feedback today.
Before we came on stage, we were told to speak up. I think I'm overdoing it. But there are examples from coast to coast to coast in Canada that we're using in water, energy, food, urbanization, indigenous sovereignty, all kinds of applications. When we came up with our study a year and a half ago, we were totally surprised to find out that Canada is one of the top 3 jurisdictions for clean AI. We've now gone down to 5th place, and this is always our challenge in Canada, is to take our ingenuity and our skill at doing research, collaboration coast to coast and in 2 languages and so on. We're really good at stuff, but we're not so good yet at scaling the solutions that we invent. And this is part of why being here this week with everybody has been so useful. But there are so many examples of how AI can be a force multiplier, an unexpected one, in addressing these challenges that heretofore seemed inaccessible. Or the data, like in oceans, there's always been tons of data, but could we use it? Do we have the compute? And I think this is the game changer for us now, that it's bringing these 2 epic areas together. And it's not only are we going to provide solutions, but this is exportable excellence. This is what our friends in places like India want from a country like Canada. And so as we pivot and become more diverse in our relationships around the world, this is absolutely a calling card for us.
Yeah, maybe to add to this, I can say that speaking from the academic sector, the position of Canada in the AI research is widely and globally recognized. It's really a global leader in AI research. across different subfields. So I think there's no doubt of this. So Canada really has this potential, and I think it's really a matter of shaping it into things that really transfer into society through startups, through bigger companies. And I would just hint at something, which is that I think there's also an opportunity to find alternative pathways from transferring research and knowledge into commercial products, into perhaps government solutions as well, by detaching the technology from what is, for example, being done within the usual big tech companies that have very specific ways in the US. And I think there's really no, I was going to say no need, but it's maybe more than no need, is that there's an opportunity because we have a potential, the potential of the research that is being done at home. And it doesn't need to be like huge models. It doesn't need to be general purpose models. No, there's AI so much more than ChatGPT. That's a simplification. There's really a lot of potential in small AI, small models that are very well designed for specific things and actually can be transformed into usable technology relatively easily, and I think that's where I would like to see more development in the coming years.
Yeah, those are all very great points, Alex. Nick, to pivot back to you, I like that you brought numbers and data into the mix. In a conversation last week with all of us, you kind of mentioned that the AI and sustainability worlds aren't really converging right now. You said that the AI world doesn't really see the size of the prize, whereas the sustainability world is focused only on the carbon footprint of data centers. So can you talk us through the size of the commercial opportunities at hand, and how do we quantify that? And anyone else, feel free to chime in after.
The commercial opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the size of commercial opportunities.
I'm always asked, how big is the market size for clean AI? And I go, well, how big is the planet? Because ultimately, we're going to have AI in everything, and everything has to be clean. Otherwise, we won't have a planet. So it's the global economy. It's almost clean AI inside. So you can break this down by industry verticals, and Kendra would know the numbers on oceans, and when you hear them, they're stunning. But so many of the applications, even in oceans, mangrove protection, et cetera, are opportunities for AI. So the scale of this is just dawning on us. I mean, right now we're using AI in the clean economy transition, for things like measurement and optimization. But ultimately, this is a design issue, and circularity is something that those of us in sustainability care about, but it's almost impossible to implement because it's too complex. The co-benefits are difficult to unpack, and so on. AI can help us get into these things. So we can design out waste from our economic systems. 200 years ago, at least in the English language, we didn't use the word waste in literature because we didn't have waste in our society. We're going to get rid of the word waste. We won't have it anymore. So the market opportunity is massive. And you look at Canadian companies, just one in Montreal that I was thinking about before we came on stage called Decibel. They just raised $50 million, I think, from the Canada Growth Fund and others. They're taking EVs and their batteries and using them to power homes, and using AI to make this efficient and bringing down the cost by an order of magnitude. And I think this is where AI helps us. It helps make clean tech or climate tech innovation, which was finding it hard to be economically competitive, and it's reducing the capex, it's reducing the time to market, and making it much more attractive for investors and customers. And so, how big's the market? How big's the global economy?
Are we seeing investments in clean tech AI growing or declining, though, over?
The investments are growing pretty dramatically. If you go back to when clean tech started, it took 10 years for clean tech to mobilize $10 billion a year in venture capital. And now, that's happened in 1 year. So clean AI is keeping pace with the broader AI place. But you made a really good point earlier, one of our collaborators here on the stage. What we're talking about, I think, amongst us here, is very different than the sort of ChatGPT stuff that most of us are familiar with, and it's our first sort of entry into the AI world. We're talking about here is so-called narrow AI, SLMs. It's the application end of the stack. And that's where it's sort of a niche to scale opportunities. And I think that's going to be where countries, smaller countries like Canada, are going to prosper.
So maybe I'll pile on to that from an ocean perspective. So maybe to step back. So why is ocean so critical to this conversation? So at a planetary level, 70% of the planet, 90% of the excess heat of the planet is absorbed by the ocean. The carbon sequestration, the majority of that is done by the ocean. 50% of the oxygen that we breathe is generated by the ocean. Over 50% of our biodiversity on the planet is in the ocean. And we are seeing a lot of our extreme weather events that can be tracked back to the ocean. So it's incredibly important to the climate conversation to be thinking about ocean. We're seeing ocean more and more coming in. It's surprising to think that 5 or 6 years ago it really wasn't part of the climate conversation, and it's incredibly important. So then you step back and you say, well, why Canada? So Canada has the longest coastline in the world. Half of that is in the Arctic. The Arctic is warming at about 4 times the speed of the rest of the country, so that really matters, especially as we're talking about doing more and more things in the Arctic over the last number of months. And we have the 4th largest ocean territory, and we touch on the Pacific and the Arctic and the Atlantic. And then you combine that with our incredible AI capability. And so back 3 years ago, before ChatGPT, so before kind of AI was a thing, we said, how do we bring the communities of ocean and AI together in Canada, because we think this is a huge opportunity. It's hard to imagine that 3 years ago we really had to talk the ocean community into the idea of AI. Luckily, about 10 months later, everything exploded, and now everyone is talking about AI, but 3 years ago that they weren't. And so at an overall ocean economy, so the ocean economy globally is growing at 20% greater rate than the rest of the economy, number one. We have set an ambition for Canada, which is Ambition 2035, at a supercluster level, which says we think we can be 5 times where we are today, so that's 220 billion. And I would be surprised, it is rare now that we would see a project that does not include some kind of AI component. So even if you're electrifying a fishing boat, you want to be able to track efficiency using AI. If you are putting a coating on a ship, you want to see that your efficiency has improved using AI. If you want to sequester carbon with seaweed, you are using AI to be able to demonstrate that you're achieving your outcomes. So I think a large majority of that opportunity will have an AI component. So I think that it's massive. And the last thing I'll say on the financing side is I was just in Monaco in June, and the ocean economy, sustainable ocean, needs $175 billion in investment by 2030, and we are at about 10% of that. So if you're thinking about building a company, you think about all the financing that's going to come into this space is going to be absolutely huge in the next 5 years.
So obviously there's no shortage of ideas and opportunities at hand. How do we best scale these concepts so that the best solutions aren't languishing in obscurity? What does industry, government, academia, and civil society need to do specifically to move things from ideation to production and get pilot projects to more and more organizations?
Perhaps just very quickly, I think I'll answer your question in 2 portions. First, back to that question of transferring from research to the industry. Looking at what we see in the international sphere, there are interesting models in terms of transfer research to commercialization that are very interesting. In Germany, as an example, there are some things called the Fraunhofer Institute, where we have a space outside of the university, but outside of the businesses and the industry as well. And it's kind of a safe space for experimentation, for businesses to share very openly their challenges, for researchers to be do their research within that context, which is outside of the university, and it demonstrated really an accelerated impact in terms of transfer and commercialization. So that's the first aspect. Second aspect, one key thing I think we should keep in mind is first also starting by having a good understanding of the environmental footprint of AI systems in general. And I invite you all to see the speech of Sasha Lucioni a bit later today on this stage. So really understanding, looking at the life cycle, what are the hotspots, what are the opportunities, and building on what Nick said a bit earlier, having the understanding of that footprint over the life cycle, we may find opportunities for circularity as an example. So eco-design, circular economy, identifying the hotspots where we can improve and optimize the environmental footprint of the AI system. And also doubling on what Alex said earlier, the large language model is not always the solution. And it comes with a bigger environmental impact and bigger carbon footprint. So understanding when we want to implement AI, what is our question? What is our need? So what is the functionality that we want to do? And when we answer that question, then we are more easily able to understand whether we need a smaller model, which will be less carbon emission intensive, or a large language model. So I think that there's part of it which is tackling really the challenge of transfer, research to the industry, and as well having the big picture, understanding through life cycle perspective what's the impact, so we can understand where are the opportunities for optimization.
Yeah, well, I'm not an expert myself on to talk about everything that is needed to do this transfer. But maybe I can add my 2 cents to this conversation by talking about what I see among my colleagues and students who, for example, finish their PhDs, their master degrees, and are extremely talented. They have acquired immense amount of knowledge, resources, skills to apply AI, and they're extremely motivated to apply AI for good purposes, for good applications. And I have to say that many of them are disappointed with what they find in the job market, because it's either big companies that are not exactly aligned, let's say, with this ethical values and motivation to apply AI to tackle climate change, for example, or small startups that don't have the resources to turn these ideas and these skills and research motivation into tangible impacts. So I don't have the solution. I don't know exactly what's needed here, and I think my colleagues on stage can add more to that. But what I have to say is that there's definitely a need to create the opportunities for the talented people because the motivation and the interest is definitely there. I see it every day and my colleagues.
I'm reflecting on the fact that I'm thinking of the leading clean AI companies that I know of in Canada, from coast to coast. I can't think of one of them that's a spin-out from academia. Not one. Most of them collaborate with the academy and work with the leading AI institutes, but that's not where they're coming from. They're coming from people who are migrating often from other tech sectors like telecom or biotech or something. And I think this is the point. I think that if we want to bring things to market, we have to have people who understand markets and understand how to access markets. But there are things we can do in Canada, and at the Clean AI Initiative, we're launching next year the first global Clean AI hub or cluster. And the idea is to bring together the demand side with the innovation side. And once we prove out certain things, then to have a purpose-built capital engine to scale this into global markets, particularly the global south, where AI is going to be a game changer in how they manage all kinds of difficult situations. And so that's, I think, what we have to do in Canada. We have to build on the good things that we're already doing, like the superclusters, like the AI research institutes. But if you look at the top 10 clean AI venture capitalists, there's not one private sector one in Canada. We're not backing our own expertise. So we're on this steep learning curve, and the real challenge is most people don't realize the size of the prize that climate change represents when you think of it in terms of markets. BCG came out with a study that's probably a little stale now, but they said that AI can help us deal with 10% of global emissions by the end of this decade. That translates into a $3.2 trillion market opportunity. I know healthcare's big, I know education's big, I know there's lots of other things that matter, but I don't think there are many markets as big as this, and we don't quite grasp that yet. And I just came back from Singapore, where it's so interesting. They're the ones who now care about climate change and sustainability. And maybe we've been too influenced by our cousins south of the border, and we think the lights have gone out. I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, so again, maybe to dig on the ocean AI layer of that. So I think, so talent's a big one. So I was just, again, New York Climate Week, and we were talking about how do we unlock more financing for a blue economy to scale these great solutions globally. And 90% of the ocean economy is small and medium enterprises, and I think 85% of the workforce. So that is part of the challenge, to your point, is how do they have the resources to bring in the talent that really wants to be there? I truly believe, there is an opportunity. Anyone that cares about climate can absolutely come find a role in the ocean economy, because we need everyone. We're 1.2 million jobs if we get to $220 billion. So that's a huge opportunity. So, the awareness piece is absolutely one, is how do we make sure that people understand the opportunity? How do we help decision makers? The ocean economy is spread across transportation, it's part of climate, it's part of all these different departments, and so you don't think of it as it comes together because it's got so many pieces, but if we thought about it as it came together, it'd be a much more massive opportunity. That affects regulation, right? So how do we accelerate regulation when it comes to autonomous shipping, for example, and much smaller vessels? There's all these examples of where regulation gets in the way of technology coming into various ocean industries, absolutely. So, the financing piece is one, helping. The other thing with ocean is you need patient capital. So Singapore is very focused on philanthropic dollars, number one. They're trying to be the philanthropic capital of the world. And they're able to provide patient capital. So helping our investors understand, helping our talent understand, helping our decision makers understand, so that we can remove the barriers to growth, because I think a lot of the solutions are there. We just have to help those that can help those companies scale find them. I am excited to say in Ocean we do have some solutions that are coming out of academia, and that's been a huge focus, is how do you help the researchers. We have a program called Lab to Market that actually about 50% of those researchers then incorporate and start to build a business, because we have tended to separate commercialization from research, not an ocean problem, a Canadian problem. And we are starting to bring those back together and say, scaling your solution so that the planet can benefit is not a bad thing for your academic research. It's actually a great thing because it's a gift to the rest of the world.
Great. So with a few minutes left, I know some audience members might be asking us to address the elephant in the room. What about the carbon footprint of AI and et cetera? We all know that building, training, and running AI models is energy intensive. So I'd like to ask all of you for our final question, what then is the best way to weigh the potential environmental cost of an AI-driven climate solution versus its benefits? Sophie, I think you alluded a little bit to that in one of your earlier responses, so maybe you can start us off.
Yeah, well, I think that, back to what I was saying, we need to understand that environmental footprint, that carbon footprint. I will add that having the bigger vision of the environmental footprint, so being able to understand as well the water footprint, the energy footprint, so all the impacts also related to rare earth, critical minerals, it's very important, especially in the context of geopolitical active movements, let's say, these days. So it's very important to have that full vision, to be able to understand where are the hotspots, but also where are the opportunities. And back to what I was mentioning a bit earlier as well, when we want to adopt AI or when we want to develop an AI solution, the first question is, what is our issue? What is our challenge? What is the functionality that we want to have at the end of the day? And hence be able also to take the decision of which type of model is necessary. It's not always the big LLM. It could be the smallest model, which as well, and building on to what Nick mentioned, with a vision of also inclusion, or also thinking about countries that are more scarce in terms of resources, Singapore as an example, and Kendra, that's what you mentioned, that will highlight some new opportunities. So that would sum it up.
Yeah, I've hinted at this before, but I think this question is a good opportunity to expand on the idea of big AI, small AI. I think the impacts of AI, and in particular the environmental impacts, but not only, also the societal impacts, it's an elephant in the room for good reasons. The environmental impacts of AI are growing, and it's becoming a deep concern for many of us. But it's precisely because the way AI, or some of the ways in which AI is being developed, is it's with this mindset of huge models, general purpose models, and of course this requires big data centers, a lot of energy, a lot of water, a lot of resources. But this does not need to be like this. There can be small AI. So to me, that's the pathway. There's of course an economic interest in having huge models and general purpose models by the same big companies that also own the data centers. I don't think there's a need to expand on this, but there is a reason why it takes this direction. But I think there is a fantastic opportunity to detach the development of AI from this mindset of everything has to be big, everything has to be general purpose, everything has to be very impactful. We can develop narrowly focused models, methods that are fantastic, are amazing for what they are designed for, and they actually consume very little resources. I don't want to say it's negligible, it's not negligible, but compared to the ChatGPTs and Geminis of the world, they are very, very effective. And we are, maybe if there's time, I can give some examples, but I see this continuously. Very impactful projects, very impactful applications that rely on, not on big LLMs, but rely on small models. So to me, the pathway is this: small AI, more democratically managed, more democratically developed, that can lead to effective solutions and applications.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think from an ocean perspective, there's lots of really impactful applications of AI that don't require a huge amount of compute based on what we've heard from our companies. That is not the issue that we're seeing, I think, in the ocean economy. I think the other piece is AI can help accelerate the transition to clean energy. So for us, offshore wind, for example, is a huge opportunity. Wave and tidal a little bit further behind. But AI plays a role from site inspection to environmental inspection to remote monitoring of assets to predictive maintenance. There's a whole suite of AI capability in offshore wind that can help us accelerate our journey, if we can figure out the regulation, to clean energy.
We've done a lot of work in this area, both proprietary research and curating what others are looking at, whether it's the IEA or Grantham Institute and so on. I think the challenge of the AI energy footprint is part of the broader challenge of electrification, right, which we're facing. Secondly, recent research by the IEA, and I think Frank de Rosier spoke about this on stage yesterday, that the answer to AI's energy footprint is AI in many ways. The most recent research suggests that for every watt that AI will take, AI can also be used to reduce the footprint by 3 times that. So up to 3 times. Now, that's dependent upon 3 things happening. A clean energy grid, i.e. powered by renewables, 2 efficient data centers, and the problem is a huge opportunity, and there's various banks on Wall Street that are talking about how this is going to unleash a wave of innovation from Silicon Valley and points beyond, because there are solutions, cooling solutions, efficiency solutions. And then thirdly, we're getting more efficient in our algorithms and our GPUs and all the other things. So I think that the issue around the footprint of AI specifically is not really going to be the issue going forward, either because we'll be way better, and look at DeepSeek. And if you want to look at who's using DeepSeek, I have a friend who runs a hospital in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. They're using DeepSeek. It's cheaper, more efficient. So we've got to translate what we're capable of bringing to the world into the conditions that the vast majority of the world lives in. And in doing that, we will have sort of frugal innovation that will bring down the costs of this. So whether it's edge computing, whether it's other innovations, actually I don't think this will be the elephant in the room going forward. I think there's many other issues that matter. I actually think water is a bigger problem, but there are companies in Canada, solution providers, who are coming up with dry data centers. So there's ways around this, but every problem is an opportunity. And I think this is going to unleash huge amounts of entrepreneurial energy. And if I may, we're going to be discussing this in a dedicated summit in Toronto on October 8th. And very happy, since this is probably my last chance to say something to the people who are still with us this afternoon, my colleagues and I will be outside the entrance to this session, and we'd be more than happy to talk about the summit, our research, and how we can engage with everybody here further.
Great. Well, thank you so much, panelists, for the thoughtful conversation, and for all of you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the conference and the cocktails tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.